I'm still very much of the view, Arlene, that the RMT and its members have got a legitimate grievance here. I mean, the truth is that workers on the London Underground are being expected to pay the price, in this case, of the serious lockdown restrictions over the last couple of years, which have had a profound impact on the Tube in terms of its budget and so on. And you know, the Transport for London is looking to make significant savings. And as is often the case, it's the workforce that's being asked to make the sacrifice. And not unreasonably, the RMT are campaigning against the loss of jobs, up to 600 jobs potentially, the ripping up of working arrangements, a potential attack on pensions. And as I've said before, it's always very much a last resort for workers to take strike action. There are considerable hoops nowadays as a result of the law that unions have to go through before they can hold a ballot, before they can subsequently call strike action. There are minimum thresholds for things like turnouts, and in essential services there's even more stricter thresholds. So I think for members of the RMT to have come to this view, bearing in mind they're going to be making a sacrifice themselves. They're going to be losing money themselves. They've done it because I think they have a legitimate grievance. And what I would say is, look, Sadiq Khan, as the Mayor of London, needs to come to the table, needs to speak to the RMT. It's not too late to have these strikes called off, but there needs to be real movement, and there needs to be real compromise, and there needs to be an understanding that ordinary workers should not continually be expected to pay for decisions and circumstances that are beyond their control.
Yeah, but it's difficult to see, Paul, what the Mayor more he can do, because 15,000 Tube staff received an 8.4% pay rise in April. And that was a month after strikes cost TfL £13 million in lost fares. So whilst you're right to say, of course, the workers won't be paid for the strikes, it's also the lost fares, which, of course, is income to TfL to keep the whole network running. So it's going to force many Londoners to work from home tomorrow. And, you know, it has a real impact on the economy of the city. Surely, I mean, you've mentioned compromise and the need to have compromise. Surely there needs to be compromise on both sides.
I mean, the truth is, Arlene, and I say this as in my time I've been a senior trade union official, I've stood on many picket lines. Employers and governments will always make the argument, look, if you take industrial action, it will have an impact on the operations of the particular company, on the profits of the particular company, on the wider economy, and therefore you will always lose out in the long run. The organisation, the country will lose out in the long run. So, you know, you might as well call the industrial action off. I mean, that, I think, is a form of moral blackmail. It's a way of saying to people, look, whenever you take industrial action, it's never, ever going to have any effect in our view. So it's a pointless right to hold in terms of the right to withdraw your labour. Now, the truth is, actually, history tells us that strike action can often work. Industrial action can often work by bringing to the fore the genuine grievances of the workforce and exerting a certain amount of leverage on employers and governments that otherwise wouldn't be willing to make concessions. And I've made the argument on the show before, Arlene, as you know, that the vast majority of advances ever won by working class people in this country have come about as a result of being prepared to struggle through their trade unions for better pay and better conditions and decent pensions and so on. So I think there will always be those elements who will condemn any form of strike action, and it's not something that people do lightly. As I say, it's a last resort. It's something that people only tend to do when they feel they've run up against a brick wall. And it's often the case, in my experience, actually, that in the hours and days before strike action takes place, that's the real point at which the horse trading can take place and both sides could seek to compromise. So what you need is both sides around the table, locked in a room, hammering out an agreement so it doesn't come to strike action. But if it does, I understand the motives of the RMT and I defend what they're trying to do.